For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and welcome to episode 16 of the Brian Cole Story. In case you've missed any of the previous episodes, you can find that on our website at DrydenWire.com, on our Facebook page, under our videos tab, or just go to our YouTube channel under DrydenWire, youtube.com/DrydenWire, or just go to YouTube and search DrydenWire. Brian, welcome back.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am sore.
Oh, because?
I did a roof job yesterday and
Dude,
found
you're
out
not.
that I am 57.
No, yeah. What are you doing? Were you getting paid for it or something, or you're just like, I think I'm
No,
just doing
someone
rough?
from the church, a couple of members of the church brought it up last Sunday here that they had a roof that needed to get done, and um, they're not really capable. So, and they didn't know nothing about it, and stuff costs so much money nowadays. I right out there. That's how I am. Well, hey man, I'll come over and do it.
Oh, yeah.
It was just a garage, right? It's a huge
Oh,
garage,
oh.
but at
Like
least
garages aren't too bad. The pitch is usually pretty low in a garage.
yeah. But it was a big garage, 3-car garage, but the nice thing is the tear off is already done and all that. So,
Yeah, that's the hard part.
but yeah, on top of feeling my age up there, I think I got wounded more than I've ever been wounded on all the roofing jobs I've ever done in my past. First time I can ever remember hitting my finger with a hammer and the D-edge cutting me up, and but yeah, it was hard to get out of bed this morning.
Yeah, stop doing that.
Yeah,
You're too old.
yeah.
You're not actually that
But
old.
I also, out of all the pain, obviously my knees are pretty good, and my back. But man, that's some glute workout because my glutes hurt this morning.
Everything must hurt this morning.
Yeah.
Like, I'm hurting just hearing about it. And I'm only 45. All right, so we left off our last episode. So I listened to it this morning, actually, because sometimes after a week, I kind of forget where we left off. And I couldn't find my notes from last week. So I wrote down 3 main things in terms of where we are. Your wife is pregnant. You lost your job, but you were living in a house. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much where we are.
Yeah.
Am I missing something?
Left with the cliffhanger last week.
All right, well, let's pick it up there. Where do you want to start?
All right, yeah. So lost my job, not get fired or nothing. Just the guy couldn't afford it anymore, and
Yeah.
he let me go. And my wife is pregnant, and it's one of them kind of why God deals. First time I've been. I mean, other than the things that got thrown at me as far as some of the temptation things, and this was really one of the hard points in my life. It's like, what do I do?
And
Why is this?
yeah, the why God, I mean, things are going well. You are
Yeah,
loyal to God, you believe in God, you're living a Christian life, and then this
yeah,
happens. I think that's where that why God part comes in. And I don't care
correct.
where you are in your faith or how long you've been a Christian, that that happens. We all
Yeah, for
go
sure.
all right, so am I being punished? Am I doing something wrong? Should I be doing something different? Why is this happening? So you were
Yeah,
experiencing this. So this may be one of the first times that was like a
yeah,
really big
that
moment
powerful.
that
Yeah,
so this is your first time experiencing the why God after becoming a Christian.
yeah, in a big way anyway.
Right.
Yeah, and I think we left off last week talking a lot about sovereignty and all that. But up to this point, I didn't really know a lot about the sovereignty of God and trusting in that and all that. So I'm still kind of a baby Christian. We're not even 3 years into my faith yet. So the sovereignty thing wasn't really impressed into me yet. So yeah, it was a huge why God moment. Not that I, question my faith or anything like that. It's just, what's going on here? Why is this happening? I've been faithful. Just some of the questions that we have when we're in the faith. It's not an unquestionable faith, man. There's a lot of things like, why is this happening? So, and this is kind of the point where if you don't have that high view of the sovereignty of God, you start going into self and how can I fix this? And that's what I kind of was doing is, well, how can I fix this? Well, I do have, what is the saying? Jack of all trades, master of none. I had a lot of different trades under my belt that I've done here and there, including the roofing thing, and knew enough about some things to get by. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm just for now, I'm going to have to just start looking for some cash jobs, and because I still got to provide for my family, I still got bills to pay. And in the meantime, I did up a job, a resume, a really good resume for myself. And during the day while I was out looking for work and put myself out there for work, I was dropping resumes off and I was being very proactive about that. I went to job search, job center or whatever, and went under there, did a little program they had there about teaching you how to do resumes, and at the end of that training, they gave you some gas money, money for clothes, and all that kind of stuff. But it gave me some tools that I really needed because 27 years in prison, only a little jot of time here and there out, a lot of things changed. And now there's computers and all this other hiring processes are completely different now. It's online stuff. And I didn't know anything about that. So they gave me a lot of tools that I could have used and did use for looking for work. So I was dropping.
Did they teach you about, or during those classes, how you answer tell us about 3 of your biggest weaknesses.
Yeah. They did.
Oh, let's see. I work too hard. I'm too dedicated. I'm too loyal.
Start.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right, sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, looking for work hardcore, and in the meantime, just praying, God, what's going on, and what can I do, and so I'm out and I'm getting work. People from churches and stuff that are hiring me on for stuff, including my pastor, my teacher, Pastor Mike. He was probably one of my first guys. He needed some bathroom work done. I didn't know nothing about bathroom or indoor construction, but hey, most of it was tear out, ripping out walls and stuff. I'm pretty good at destroying things, so let's destroy your bathroom. So I busted my butt for him and got a really good recommendation from him for people because he saw my work ethic. My work ethic is awesome. Even if I don't know how to do something, man, I'm just one of them guys. I got to be doing something. I can't just stand around, and I need to get things done. I'm a very clean person. One of the things my dad always taught me was you need to leave the job site nicer than when you went there, and I've always been like that. So I worked for him and got some. He put the word out, and I started getting some work. And in the meantime, I'm dropping off these applications. Now, we talked before about I had some experience in the graphic arts area, printing. I worked in some print shops while I was out prior times, and I just love that work. So I was dropping off a lot of resumes to printing places in Chippewa and Eau Claire. Ain't many in Chippewa, but there's a bunch in Eau Claire. And even though they weren't hiring, I still went in and dropped it off. So all of a sudden, one day, I get a call from Phillips, I think it is, in Chippewa Falls, Phillips
sure.
Printing or something like that. Yep. They were interested we're like, we got a guy that we're not really looking for somebody yet, but we got a guy might be leaving and we'd like to talk to you. And I'm like, awesome, So I went and talked, and turned out really good. And again, they were impressed by the same thing the other printing companies in the past were impressed with, which was my expertise in the whole graphics area, not just I know how to print or I know how to do bindery or photography or whatever. I knew it all. I've experienced it all, and they were impressed by that. So we had a really good conversation. Now this is where it really gets exciting. At the same time, but I don't know if it was the same week, I get a call from Pastor Mike, who is now the pastor of Faith Evangelical Free Church in Stanley, Wisconsin. So he was administrator at the church I was going to at Chippewa Valley Bible Church, but now he's a pastor at this E-Free Church in Stanley. And he says, hey, we might have a possibility of having an opening as a youth pastor. What would you think about that? And okay, I'm not even out 2 years yet, and even though Pastor Mike is my teacher, going through schooling with him every week, I was freaked out that he would even ask me about something like that. Because I'm a rookie and I just, I'm fresh out and all that. And it's like me being part of a church. I just got out of prison, man. Come on. But I'm like, you know what? Because one of the things that when I it was part of the Chippewa Valley Bible Church, and I still was at this time in Chippewa. I was part of Awana. I was a leader in Awana. After doing Awana for a few times. That's a story in itself, how that all started through VBS. I had no idea that there was even anything like that. And I remember I was at and this, I got to go into the story because, again, this is just showing how Christ is working in me. So I was going to the men's group with them guys with Jeff Flagg and them. And one night they're like, okay, VBS is coming up and And I raised my hand. I'm like, what's VBS? And they're like, oh, Vacation Bible School. They explained it to me. So VBS is coming up, and they have a lack of leaders to help out. We want to be able to fill those gaps. So we would like to team up pairs of guys out of this group to help each night of the week. And so I had things going on every night except I think it was the last night that they were going to do VBS. And I said, well, I can do the last night with somebody. And they're like, okay. So I went in with another guy, and this was all new to me. So I don't know if you ever heard of the Go Fish guys. Some people might have heard of them. So they're a band, and they mainly focus towards youth. But I never heard of them before. I never heard of VBS, Go Fish guys. What's all this? But I walked into the church that night to do VBS. And so here's hundreds of kids. And the youth, some of the youth from the youth group were up on the stage, and they got the big screen up there, and they're doing this Go Fish guys video, and the youth are dancing up on the stage, and the kids are all active and into it. And I am just weeping. I'm like, what is this, man? This is flipping awesome. Look at all these kids worshiping God. And all I remember about that night is I was just in awe, and I wept a lot. It was hard for me to help because I was just so awed by everything. I'd never experienced anything like that before. And that really moved me to want to get involved with kid ministry. And that's when they threw me in Awana. And then after Awana, I found out about youth group, and I'm like, well, I think I have more to offer these kids, the older kids, than the younger kids. So I got involved with the youth group, and I was still doing both, but I really enjoyed the youth group. So that's what kind of got me into it. So this concept of working with the youth, plus, I'm out on the road, and I'm speaking at youth groups in different churches and stuff. So it appealed to me in that way. I'm like, yeah, I would love to do that, but I have absolutely no experience to be a youth pastor. One of the things that I realized early in my faith, going to church and stuff, is like, man, how do these pastors come up with messages week after week? And some of these guys are doing this for 40, 50 years, man. How can you do that? So that scared me a little bit. So anyway, I'm like, yeah, let's.
By the way, no kidding. I just kind of assumed that, they're kids, so they grow. I don't think you have to have a new message every week. I just assume like every 4 years they just kind of, all right, starting the process over again, because you're assuming.
Well, I didn't know about that. I didn't think about that.
I don't know if that's true or not. I just always kind of assumed.
No, that ain't how it worked with me. But anyway, and that doesn't work with a pastor, right?
All right.
Then
true.
Again, after a few years, you probably got a whole new congregation if it's anything like us.
Sure, right.
So anyway, so that got thrown at me, and I'm like, yeah, let's talk about that. So it kind of went from, over the next couple of weeks, it went from, well, it's not just youth pastor now, it's youth pastor and leadership training and all that. Do you have any experience in that? And I'm thinking, I'm like, no, I don't think so, but I'm thinking, and I'm like, you know what? I do. I trained up leaders for 33 years in the occult. You know what I'm saying? I made disciples. I trained them up. I have all those leadership qualities just on the other side of the fence for the wrong person. So yeah, I do. Next thing you know, I got another request from the job to come back and do my second interview. Went back, did my second interview. They were very impressed, and they were talking about, we have 3 other guys that we're looking at. We are probably going to be hiring someone, so we will keep you informed. In the meantime, it's going back and forth with Pastor Mike. Well, no, well, yeah, but now it's this, and this. And then it went finally to youth pastor, outreach pastor, and associate pastor. And I'm like, okay, so we're talking about this, but nothing's really solid about any of this. It's all up in the air, and it keeps changing.
Can I interject or just ask something? So at this point, your mind is thinking, I've got this one thing and I've got this other thing. Now, neither seem to be fully committed, and you don't really know where you are. What was going through your mind? Were you hoping for one? Was it, Lord, whatever you want me to do? Were you at that place? What was going through your mind during the time of one of these two will probably work out? I don't know whichever is first.
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
That's how my mind would work in my old self. I'm going to take whatever's given to me first. That's that. I can't really recollect the purposeful thoughts during that time until that last day. But I know it was back and forth. It's like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
Yeah.
I don't want to do what I want to do. I want to do what God wants me to do. But what's going on here? Again, why God? What's going on here? What do you want for me? But then, so here's what happened. Now, I got my third interview. Went in there, and they said we're going to hire you. You're going to start next Monday. Here's the pay. Here's the benefit package. So here I know how much I'm getting paid. I know this is a job that I love. I knew the benefits. This
Yeah,
is just what I've wanted.
Yeah, you're crazy not to take it.
Man, my insides are welling up with happiness. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man, thank you, Lord.
Yeah.
Fast forward 2 days after that, I get a call from Pastor Mike again. Well, we are seriously considering hiring you. The elders want you to come in next Monday, the same time I'm supposed to start my job. Yeah, imagine that. Want you to come in next Monday, and they are going to, talk to you. So we're going to sit down as an elder board and talk to you. And
which, by the way, that doesn't sound like you've got the job.
Well,
you got one job that you already have. You start Monday. The other one, it's really looking good, but this is almost like another third interview, except for another one. So there's no even.
And it's all up to that point. It's all been back and forth, not really knowing what they want.
Right.
So this is the first point in my life where I think, in my opinion, one of the hardest parts of walking in the faith is discernment. Discerning between what your will is and what God's will is. So here I am in the situation. I remember going outside that night and looking up at the moon, and I'm just talking, Lord, what do you want? I know how I have lived my life prior to this, and I don't want to do what I want to do anymore. I want to do what you want me to do. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do in this situation. What do you want for me? And I wish I was one of the people where I could say, yeah, I heard God talk to me. I hate when people say that, but because I don't think God really talks that way to us much anymore. Not saying it can't happen, but when people say, "Lord, Lord told me," it's like, no.
Yeah, typically when you hear someone saying that God's telling me to do something, I don't know, that usually ends in like multiple mass murders and crazy stuff. Just saying. And by the way, for anyone that is maybe new to the faith, God doesn't live on the moon.
Yeah,
Ryan was just looking at the moon,
just looking out, looking up like we do. We have a tendency.
I know. It just sounded
I'm not
funny.
moon worshiping anymore.
It just sounded funny. I was looking at the moon and talking to God.
and plus, to new believers, man, that's a not real good thing to say around new believers, because then they'll think, man, what's wrong with me? I don't hear from God. So anyway, I'm talking to Lord, and I'm just, Lord, just tell me, let me know what you want for me here, because I don't want to do things my way anymore. I've made a mess of them for all my life. And so when I woke up the next morning, I knew Holy Spirit had to be. I knew what I had to do. And not only did I know what I had to do, but I did it in a way I wouldn't have done in the past. Now, in the past, because I chose to go and have a meeting and talk with the people at the printing company, and tell them what's going on, and say, here's what's been going on. I have this deal coming up on Monday as well. And I just feel the leading of the Lord. And, I talk to him about my faith, the leading of the Lord, that I'm supposed to go this route. If, however, it doesn't happen, if there's ever a time, that next week or whatever, that you still would like me on, I certainly would be available. And, I hope you don't take offense to me making this choice. And they were all good with it. They were glad I came in to talk to them, because in the past, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have even let them know. I just wouldn't have showed up. So that itself was God moving in me and saying, you need to do things different now. And you need to care for people and love on people and not just diss people. So he was all good with that and said, yeah, well, thanks for coming in and telling us this, and still having time for them to be able to hire somebody else. So yeah, there it was, man. I let go of what I knew I could have had to something that I had no clue if it was going to happen or not. So yeah, fast forward to that Monday, and I went in front of the elder. So Pastor Mike was considered an elder, and I think there was 4 or 5 other ones. So there were 5 or 6 people, and sitting around this big table, and they're throwing all these questions at me. And again, other than just getting into the Bible and doing Bible studies and correspondence courses and training now under Mike for a couple of years, I had no clue about any of this stuff. I certainly didn't have any experience in Christian ministry. Had a lot of experience in satanic ministry, but not in Christian ministry. So at the end of this, it was probably a couple hours. They were throwing things at me, and at the end of that, I distinctly remember what they said, and that was, we've been a church for 50 years, and we've always went with experience and not passion, and it's always been a failure. We see passion in you, and we're going to go for that. So you're hired. So I was like, I didn't even know what to say. I was like mouth agape. I guess I was hopeful, but I didn't expect it, And so when the reality hit, it was like, wow, what just happened here, man? I'm a pastor. What? I'm a youth pastor. So yeah, I got the job, and I think that, it was in May, around the 1st of May, and my official start date was May 28th, 2012. So I went back home, joyful, but kind of, not worried, but just like, how do I do this? I know one of the things that was good is that Pastor Mike was there. Pastor Mike's my teacher, and so I had somebody there to teach me and train me. So it wasn't too big of a worry. But it's like, how do you do this? How do you start from nothing? And what do I do?
Right.
So I'm popping up videos on youth ministry and reading articles on youth ministry
Sure.
and trying to at least sound like I know what I'm talking about when I go up in there. And in the meantime, they gave me an office and moved whoever used to be in there out, moved all the stuff out, and I'm moving my stuff in. And it was the first week of May, and I'm in there at the church, and I'm setting stuff up. They had this huge area in the church. It used to be a Christian academy, and that same year that they hired me, they had asked the Christian academy to leave and find another building. And I'm like, what are you guys going to do with this? Well, we don't know. I said, well, can we use this for a youth area? Because it was gargantuan, And they're like, yeah, go ahead. Do whatever you want with it. I'm like, what? So May 28th, or 23rd, 28th, something like that, was my official start date as youth pastor, outreach pastor, and associate pastor at the Evangelical Free Church in Stanley, Wisconsin. So that was pretty awesome. The elders and Pastor Mike trusted me with everything, how I wanted to do it, how I wanted to set it up. I had nobody, unfortunately, because once, I knew I was involved with Forest Lake District's E Free Church of America. I got with the youth manager or whatever of the E Free Church of America, the guy that goes around to all the places and works with the youth pastors in the area. And Rob Weissy, I got with him, great guy. Got involved with these weekly things or monthly things they have going on called DLC, or discipleship learning training, or something like that. And where youth pastors, all the youth pastors in the area, get together with Rob, and we'd all talk about our ministries and how it's going, what we could do better, all that. So that was a huge uplifting training method in my life, to be able to, be in contact with these other youth pastors and talk about what they do. But one of the things I found is that a lot of these youth pastors, they don't have the freedom to do what they want to do. The pastor is pretty much the one that tells them what they do and what they can't do and can do, and what they're what they're going to teach and all that kind of stuff. And I never was under any of that, guys. The elders of the church totally trusted me. I kept them up on what I was doing and what I was teaching the kids, and what my main things throughout the year was that I wanted to teach the kids. And so I was never questioned. The whole 4.5 years I was a youth pastor there, I was never questioned one time about anything that I did or how I was doing it.
Yeah, that would be like muzzling you.
Yeah.
You're not like the stereotypical youth pastor. And I don't know if there is a stereotypical youth pastor, but I'm just saying, certainly not you. If there was one, you wouldn't fall into that category.
No.
So by forcing you into follow this, do this, could you have done that? Sure.
Yeah.
But then it's like a waste of your knowledge in what you're able to bring to the table. I want to ask you, without specifics, pay. That job that you were looking at, third interview, and ready to go, versus this. I'm guessing that the other one was going to pay more. Or was this about an equal thing? It wasn't the money. And I know it's never about the money. I'm just curious. Did you leave a whole bunch of money on the table by going and by doing this?
Well, again, I was kind of a fresh Christian, and pay is important. And,
it is. I'm just saying.
I did know, they did tell me at that table what the pay was going to be, and it was less than what I would have got at the print shop.
Sure.
and there was absolutely no benefits. There was no insurance and none of that other stuff. It was just pay. So yeah, it was a decision, but it was one well made. Obviously, look where I'm at today. But and I still today still about the same pay. So anyway,
So
the
what I'm hearing is
didn't happen in my paycheck. That's for sure.
yeah. What I'm hearing is that it wasn't necessarily the quote unquote best choice, but it was the right choice.
It was the right choice. Yeah, all through I can say this all through the ministry, and that's something I'll get into later. So let's not even go there. But, so anyway, yeah, I go into this church, and now, mind you, like with the church I was going to in Chippewa, they were when I first started going there, they were in the midst of a big church split, 700 people down to 250 or something like that. Now I come into this church, and we're kind of the same deal going on here. Pastor Mike is kind of newer there. The other pastor left. A lot of church hurt going on, all that. And so in the midst of all that, here comes Brian Cole, ex-convict, not even out of prison, 2 years, mind you, and tattooed up. Now, I didn't have the mohawk yet. It just had really, really short hair. But yeah, here comes this dude, and oh my gosh, were there people up in arms. It's like, you are putting who with our children,
Right.
And plus, it's in Stanley, Wisconsin, which is, what else is in Stanley?
Oh, prison.
Which I've been in 3 times.
Yeah, I know that place well.
Yeah, so
I'm basically from Stanley at this point.
So there's members of the church that are from the prison going, and so between them and other people, they're like, you either get rid of him or we're leaving. And it's like, well, see ya. So a few people left the church because I came in there.
Oh, that's fine.
Now, one of the other things that happened, not only was there uproar with that, but I think it was within the same month that I was there. Some of the and the argument, the thing that was going on there was some of these founding members, some of them people who think that they're the ones that started the church, it's their church, and we're going to run it our way, and you can't just have somebody else come in here and tell us what to do, which is what Pastor Mike did. It's like, this is not your church, this is God's church, and we're going to run it his way. And I think he even said that he had one of the older couples come in, and the guy threatened them and said, hey, we can go all behind the woodshed, and take care of this right now. And
this church sounds awesome.
Do things our way. Yeah, ain't church awesome? So, yeah, and that's one of the reasons I didn't want to be a pastor, all this stuff. And now I'm in the middle of it. But then it got even worse because within that month, the elders were going to have a meeting, an open meeting for anybody that wanted to talk about what was going on and me and all that other stuff. And I didn't have to go because I wasn't considered an elder, but they asked me to come, and so I came. Now, what had happened was they had this down in the basement, and all of a sudden, influx of people came, and they had this all planned out, that they were going to come, and this is when they were going to take over the church and all of just wild stuff. And I'm like, what did I get myself into? And I'm sitting down here, and this meeting that's going on, I mean, there's all these, especially the older saints in the church that think they own it. They're sitting here and just hatred pouring out of their eyes and just slashing out and lashing out at the elders and Pastor Mike and so much, selfishness and conceit and hatred and bitterness going on.
It's like a political candidate town hall or something like that.
And I just remember sitting there looking around like, what is going on here? This is church,
That's crazy.
And and then it got even worse after that. After the meeting ended, I got cornered by some of these people. And they're all, what's up with all those tattoos and blah, 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 blah. And, I'm sitting here trying to defend myself. And I'm like, man, at that time, I didn't have any cover-ups to cover up some of the nasty stuff. And I said, man, you're looking at these tattoos. That's not who I am anymore. That was stuff I did in my past. I'm a new creation in Christ. The old is gone. That's gone. If you're looking at it, cool, but the Lord ain't, and I'm not. And that's when Pastor Mike and the elders came over and started sticking up for me. And if you don't understand what born again means, you obviously don't, because that's why you're looking at his tattoos and his record and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was crazy night. And I'm like, what did I just get myself into, Lord? What's going on here? But so that was my introduction into the church there. And so I was like, I'm so glad I'm not an elder and I ain't got to deal with all that. I have so much respect for you guys tolerating this stuff because I wouldn't tolerate it. You know what I'm saying? It'd be like, you guys are out of here, period. So I just don't, as a Christian, and especially as a leader in the church for the last 10 years and be a part of many ministries, I don't understand that. I just don't. That's how I was in my past. I was a bitter person, angry person, vengeful, I don't understand that as a Christian. I don't understand people being at each other's throats in the church. I do understand that we're all always going to have differences, but we're a family in Christ. And just like with a family member, I'm not going to sit here and disrespect and spew hatred on my wife and then leave and not come back. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna love my wife. I'm gonna talk about what's going on, and not all the time when we have disagreements and don't agree on things. Does it? It doesn't work out sometimes. We're still going to be in disagreement, but we're going to go on with our lives and still love each other. Yeah. That's what it needs to look like in the church. I don't understand all this hatred and church hopping because things ain't going their way, so they're going to go to the next church, especially over stupid stuff like colors of the carpets or the style of worship music and all this other
the important stuff,
non-essential stuff, man. So
I'm going to take my ball and go home.
We're 30 minutes now, so let's just end on that note. I don't understand it.
And it still happens. Now, you're talking about 10 years ago. Now, I'm not talking about your church where it is now, but that's still happening today in churches everywhere.
Everywhere. Yep.
And I've never understood it either. Like you said, I respect my mother and my brother and my father and my wife and my kid, and I love them. But we all have the same goal, and we all want each other to be happy. And well, maybe the happiness isn't necessarily the driving force, but we all love each other and want the best for each other. But it's all under the umbrella of God. And you're right. There are times where I disagree with my mom on things, and maybe she with me, but it's never what.
And guess
maybe
what?
There's some pretty big issues, and we talk about it, and then we usually will try to understand the other person's point of view or where they're coming from or understanding. And maybe we don't necessarily agree, but we appreciate each other. We appreciate the conversation. We love each other. And you move on. Yeah. I'm also surprised. That really has turned off a lot of people, including myself, when it came to some churches. Like, I don't want to be around this. This is crazy. Yeah. And all the gossipy stuff and all the things. Well, did you know that this pastor and they're doing this? It's what is happening? This is church. Yeah. Like, I feel safer in my house than I do at church, and that's crazy.
Sometimes, yeah. And I tell the people at the Oaks that all the time. It's like, we're a expository church. I'm an expository preacher. I preach through the Bible, chapter by chapter, verse by verse, book by book. And, when we come to some things, there's a lot of secondary issues that not everybody agrees about. And, whether it's the tribulation, if you're pro-trib, mid-trib, pre-trib, no-trib, whatever,
eternal security is a big one.
You believe. Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with your salvation or any of that kind of stuff. We can all have differences on that, and guess what? We can still be friends and go to the same church. You can agree with me or disagree with me, but also as a pastor, I'm not going to teach that as law either. I'm not going to say this is how you have to believe. I'm going to tell you where I stand on it sometimes. When we were going through Revelations, I didn't even tell people where I stood on the tribulation until we got to those parts because I didn't want to influence anybody's decision on what to believe in that area. I wanted them to come up with their own decision based on how they take the scriptures. So, but even if we have a difference, guess what? We can still be friends and go to the same church, man. We don't have to agree. Worship music, that's a huge one. And it's like, I didn't really like worship today, or I don't like the way they do worship. I'm a hymn person, or like, guess what? We're not here to worship you. See ya. We're here to worship the Lord. And it's not all about the music. It's really about, the lyrics. It's about worshiping God. It's as a community together. The sermon is much more of a form of worship than worship music is. We're not here to be touchy-feely in the first place. So if you get off on your emotions or music, you're in the wrong place. We're getting off on the Lord here, man.
Yeah, and
for us. And
churches should now. Like, everything that you're saying right now sounds like you're describing social media.
Yeah, that's right.
But you would never, put those two in the same category, and they're certainly not in the same category. But, for just, this scenario or this conversation, there are some likenesses, some commonalities there.
Yeah. About
petty things, about little things, and it's just really weird. Not to saying that, don't go to church or church isn't great, but, they struggle with things too. But I think you're right. You had said earlier about how much you appreciate those elders.
Yeah.
And that's where it really starts, man. And it really does. And
Good
just
leadership.
Like any leadership, doesn't matter if it's a church or just a business, it starts with the leaders. Yep. And that's why leaders are so wildly important. I don't care if all my friends or none of my friends or all one of my friend goes to a certain church or does a certain thing, or if they have the greatest bands at a church, or if it's got all the best youth groups. Hey, man, when I go there and I feel challenged, when I walk out and after listening to that sermon and there's a good leadership, that's where I go. I was told a long time ago when it came to like business, I used to run, businesses before I started Dryden, was never chase money, chase good management.
Yeah.
And I've never forgotten that. It doesn't matter if there isn't a lot of money. It doesn't matter about if it's an hour away. You follow good management.
Yeah.
Because you'll be happy. Because they'll take care of you. They know how to lead. Leadership is a huge thing. We should do a whole show just on leadership. No joke, man. When you're looking for a church, it's the leaders. That's where you go to.
Yeah. And not just with the regular stuff and the easy stuff, but with the hard stuff, how they tackle it. I think one of the things that I have seen that's different here at the Oaks is with a few churches that I've been to a lot of churches. I speak in a lot of churches. I hear their problems. Sometimes they bring me into, to kind of talk about their problems without either the elders being there or the pastor having to do that, because then I can go and mess it all up and then leave, and you got to handle it anyway. We, at the Oaks, man, we're biblical. That's the main thing. We don't run the church based on any concept of how man, deals with a business, because a lot of the churches are so much like businesses and corporations.
They absolutely are, and that's okay. You don't have to shy away from it.
Sometimes, yeah, but we are run by the Holy Spirit. We allow the Spirit to lead how He wants the Oaks to run, because we are not like another church building, and we're not going to have the same things going on as other churches. We're going to look at the scriptures about He wants, and I think one of the things a lot of churches are lacking nowadays too is discipline, church discipline. That is a huge deal, and I don't hear of many churches that even do church discipline anymore. Never thought we'd have to deal with that at the Oaks, but there was one time a couple of years ago we had to deal with church discipline at the Oaks, and it was not only with just a regular congregation member, but it was with an elder, our elder board, who was a friend of mine, or I thought was a friend of mine. And we ended up having to do church discipline on him, and it was a very hard thing, man.
Yeah.
But it was biblical, and our purpose was not just to kick him out of the church and excommunicate the guy, but the whole purpose is, in the end, is to have him repent and bring him back into the fold. But in the meantime, you need to leave, and you need to really start confessing and repenting on some things that you're doing here. And until that point, you're not allowed back here, man. And I'm not going to get into details about what he did, but he hurt a lot of people in the church, and it was not okay.
But that is part of our roles as Christians, and I don't know where you are on this, and I don't want to get into a whole thing about this, but I've always looked at it that I don't typically judge others or question others. That's fine. Believe what you want. Don't whatever. Yeah. But when it comes to my fellow Christians, I do, and I expect them to me.
Exactly.
Because I'm not gonna. Because if you're a person that doesn't believe in God, what am I judging you for? No matter what you're doing, your actions, you're not under. You're under God's umbrella. So we're having a different conversation. Because now we're talking about your actions when that's not what the conversation is. It's about how far you've fallen from Christ.
Yes.
But if you're a Christian, different story. And I will hold you accountable, or I try to, or I sometimes maybe I should, and I don't end up doing it. But I certainly, these are the conversations. And I would expect other Christians, and you have with me, hold me accountable too. Challenge me as well. Help me through that. It's not to necessarily just discipline and no, you're doing all these things wrong. Hello. We're all sinners. I get that part. But we're all here to help each other. But like any good parent, you want to be the friend, or, do you want to be the parent? I think there's a happy medium there. And there's no different with Christians. We need to hold each other accountable, but also be there as friends and guides and vice versa. But that's the way I've always looked at it.
I'd rather have somebody, a brother or sister, hold me accountable than have the Lord hold me accountable, hit me upside.
Yeah, you don't want that. Right? You don't want Grandpa coming in.
Because what does he say? God disciplines those He loves. I don't want God's discline. I'd rather take it from a person.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So, I 100% understand.
Yeah, that's it. The whole end of this is just, and this is what turns so many people off from the church. It's like, why would we want to go there? You guys are a mess. And it's like, you know what? You're right. We are. We're still human beings that are, even though we're saved and we're covered in God's righteousness and the righteousness of Christ, and God doesn't see any of that, we're still flawed human beings, and we still have sin in us. And it's messy. Church is messy. But anywhere that you go is
family's messy.
And what's the saying, man? If you are staying away from a church that's perfect. The minute you find the perfect church, you walk in there, you just messed it up. You know what I'm saying? That's just the way it is.
I love that.
But this is how we do life together. You don't leave your family
No.
because your family messed up. You work things out as a family, and you continue to love on each other and give grace and forgiveness, and over 70 times 7. You know what I'm saying? And you keep living together, you know?
Amen. All right, we'll leave it there for this week. Next week coming up, what are our topics next week? Or what are we looking at?
I think, next week we're going to be looking into a little bit of the things that I had to go through as a youth pastor, some of the things that we did as youth, as a youth ministry together. Bands coming in. Marcia got pregnant again.
Okay, wait. At this point, has she already had?
Yep, she had Dylan by now.
I feel like we kind of I mean,
so she's pregnant again. We got a dog. Just all kinds of stuff coming up, and then a lot of the on the road stuff. Different ministries out there. The
and I can't wait. How far are we away from you doing jail administry, prison administry?
Real quick here.
I'm really looking forward to hearing that.
Yeah, that was a God thing for that to even happen, because I'll just leave it at this. As a person that's on probation or parole, you cannot go into a Wisconsin prison as a volunteer, and I'm still on probation. So I obviously I was.
I can't wait for this story
at that time. Yeah, it's a good one.
All right, man. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week.
All right, love everybody.
I love you too. Bye bye.